need assistance, here to serve.
It's a good thing that we can bring it.
Really? I'm sorry. Yes, Ann. Go ahead. You're all discombobulated now.
Tim, can you tell us why TC-244, Tim, can you tell us why IHEA's involvement in the development of TC-244 is important to IHEA members?
I sure can, Ann. TC-244 is the development of an international standard that our membership, IHEA members, will be integrally involved in down the road. That's why it's important for us to be in the front end of developing this standard.
And Tim, if we weren't involved, can you tell me what the consequences might be to IHEA members?
Sure. If we're not involved now, it will become virtually impossible at a later date to change the standard once it becomes an approved, fully specified ISO standard, which means then that our member companies will have to spend more money trying to meet this new standard. That's why it's important for them to be involved now so that they can have a voice in the development of this new standard.
Perfect.
Members as part of IHEA, and it really pisses me off.
Hi, Elliot. Can you tell us why you think IHEA's involvement in the development of TC-244 is important to our members?
I think it's very important to be involved in TC-244 because it represents all our equipment manufacturers, burner manufacturers, everyone else going involved. And I think it's exciting to work with all the different manufacturers here at one location and represent ANSI to promote this cut it once.
Of TC-244 is important to our members.
I think it's important for us to represent our industrial manufacturers for industrial heating and put the best team that we can possibly do to represent us. If we don't work as a team, all manufacturers, then we're allowing other people to make decisions for us.
And what do you think the consequences would be if we weren't involved?
I think we would have a European standard.
Great. Thank you.
At the table, as we're developing this new international standard, what is going to happen down the road? We have NFPA 86 now, and other countries, JIFMA, they have theirs. Europe has their EN standard. Are all those just going to stay the same? So why should we be involved with developing this international standard and having a say-so about it?
Sure, Bill. I think the thing to remember is that most of our member companies have a great deal of their business as international. And because of that, NFPA 86 is not going to be the only governing body when they're designing ovens and furnaces and supplying this equipment around the world. The other thing to remember is while Japan, US with NFPA 86, the EN standards in Europe, while they will not go away, there is a big part of the developing world where a lot of the economic activity is coming from, for instance, India and China, that today do not have a standard. And the thought is that rather than develop their own standard, they'll probably adopt ISO standards. Yeah. Therefore, what is done today in developing this ISO standard and why it is important for our members to be involved is because after this ISO standard is developed, there's a good chance that the world, especially that doesn't have a standard today, will use and adopt this ISO standard, and so that our member companies then will have to build equipment to those standards. It's also going to be very difficult to change those standards, Bill, once they're already implemented. The biggest voice we're going to have is during the upfront work in developing those standards.
Okay.
So tell me why we need more support from other companies that aren't currently IHEA members.
Sure. And I think that anybody who today would use NFPA 86 as a guideline for developing heat process equipment is most likely then going to be affected by this new ISO standard. And that we've got a handful of companies that are doing the heavy lifting for everybody else that would benefit from their work on TC 244.
What would you say to help get those other people involved? What can we do to convince them?
Well, I think that somehow we're going to have to go to our members, because again, we've got a handful of member companies today that are doing the heavy lifting for everybody else. We need to go to our members and ask them for more support, and then somehow we need to get out to some of these other industrial combustion industries and talk to them about truly what's going to happen, and that they are going to benefit from this work that we're doing right now. What people don't understand and don't realize is that if this becomes, when this becomes an international standard, that they're going to have to develop their heat processing equipment around that standard, and it's going to be costly for them. So anything that we can do today to get in front of those standards is going to benefit everybody in the United States that currently today produces heat processing equipment.
Great. Thanks, Tim.
You're welcome.
Hey, Mark, so can you tell us why you think it's important for IHEA to be involved in the development of the standard?
The United States, in particular, has always been a leader in safety. It's worldwide, and we're seeing that Europe is, and the emerging markets in China and the like are considering safety, and we want to have a word, our say, in an international standard. We don't want people speaking for us without our input.
So if we weren't involved, what do you think the consequences would be for IHEA members and manufacturers in the U.S.?
There's all sorts of markets that we may be locked out of. Like I said, China, the emerging nations, you know, who knows? You know, the Eastern Bloc countries as they come into the European Union.
Great. Thank you, Mark.